Hello, Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Fire Force Chapter 261. When we last left our heroes, Kareem and Rekka's fight began in force, with Kareem eventually coming to the conclusion that resolving his internal conflict about Rekka by accepting that despite the fact that he didn't know everything about Rekka, despite the fact that he has to betray Rekka's dream because Rekka's dream is just kind of awful, that does not really dilute their friendship, and that friendship was real, even if he then does kind of have to kill Rekka. And then he literally fills the hole in Rekka's heart that was a symbol for the hole in Kareem's heart, metaphorically, and then kills Rekka. Meanwhile, Arthur does much the same thing in Dragon Quest. And that's where we leave off, going into Chapter 261, The Night King Rises. And our cover picture here is kind of interesting, because there's a normal style to these things. You know, there's sort of the like white background, white banner kind of thing with the picture sort of inset in the middle. This picture here is just like a color painting of Arthur. For Chapter 261, The Night King Rises, which is fitting that it's Arthur, but still, it's an interesting thing there. Anyway, we open on the Dragon Lord's castle, inside of Dragon Quest. Also, here's an interesting thing that may or may not just be an aesthetic choice and may or may not be part of Adola shit. We see the Dragon Lord's castle is kind of Company 8. Or the words the Dragon Lord's castle is over the Company 8 Cathedral. And around it is like a thunderstorm in like 8-bit lightning. So the thing with Adola is you never quite know how much is part of the Adola logic and how much of it is just Okubo having fun. I don't know. Anyway, we then cut to actual Dragon Quest as Arthur and Vulcan have arrived at the actual Dragon Lord's castle. And Arthur says, "You have my thanks, Vulcan." And Vulcan responds, "Looks like we finally made it." Final chapter, The Dragon Lord. The heroes' party has finally arrived at the Dragon Lord's castle. And the two of them kind of look at the screen solemnly as Arthur grips the controller. Here, the heroes' final battle commences. And Arthur says, "I couldn't have made it this far without you, Vulcan." And Vulcan responds, "Glad I could be of assistance." And Arthur turns to him, "I am truly thankful for you sticking with me this far." And then Vulcan just kind of says to himself, "Man, what the hell did I agree to?" But then Arthur responds, "For keeping cool in such a crazy situation. You're not just a great colleague, but a great person." So there he kind of has some self-awareness. Like, he's aware that he's kind of thrown Vulcan into this super weird situation, and yet he still feels that he needs it. And then Arthur just drops, "I can't help but think of you," which gets a reaction out of Vulcan, as Vulcan flashes back to his kind of Giovanni-fied body. That's just a really creepy look. I really love it. Anyway, Arthur continues, "We don't know where he is, right? Let's do something about that. He is one of our comrades, after all." And then Vulcan kind of pauses for a minute and responds, "I remember the day you rolled up to my workshop like it was yesterday. Sometime after Giovanni dealt with my dad and grandpa, he suddenly showed up day after day, asking if I would take on an apprentice. Every time he asked me to take him on, he'd be grinning while holding a toy of his real tight. And we see this toy, and my first thought was Giovanni. The mask kind of looked like Giovanni's Plague Doctor mask. On second thought, I think it's just an Excalibur cameo. Anyway, for the longest time, I thought he was just a nice kid doing it for fun. We get a close-up of the toy, though, which means it might be important. Anyway, but one day, when I was going out into town to get supplies, I saw him on the street, wrapped up in a blanket. I asked around, and apparently his folks had died in the fire." Okay, so you was homeless. Usually, orphans are taken in by Holy Saul run orphanages, but You didn't want to go to one of those. The thing that kept him going wasn't the Holy Saul, but rather a little doll made of odds and ends he always carried around. Apparently, you wanted to become an engineer that created things from junk, so he came to my shop. So we really are, like, focusing on this doll, and I don't really know, like, is it relevant beyond just something that you owned? I don't know. Uh, that day, I decided I wouldn't take him on as a disciple. Instead, I would take him in as my family. And we see Vulcan telling you this as Yu's like eyes light up. Even now, I remember the smile you had on his face. Soon after, Lisa found her way to my shop, and the three of us began living together. And Arthur responds, "So you became a family. Tell me more." So here's a weird thing. I just find this sort of, if this is the Night King Rises, if this is meant to be kind of the climax to the Dragon Quest storyline, I'm curious why we're kind of tangenting onto you backstory, which is nice. It's fine. It's not super complex, but it's nice to see. But I'm just kind of curious why it's here. I imagine it's gonna have something to do with something in a minute, but we'll see. Anyway, Vulcan looks up at him. You would always imitate whatever I was doing, almost like a real little brother. And because of that, I swore to protect them, like an actual big brother would. I was just one engineer running a tiny little workshop, but I promised myself that I'd make them happy. But in the end, I'm just a behind-the-scenes kind of guy. I wanted to be a hero for them, like you and Shinra are heroes. And we see an interesting thing here is a close-up on the game controller. Almost like his frustration of being a behind-the-scenes kind of guy is reflected in his role as sort of Arthur's backup here. You know, Arthur is the hero, and Vulcan is just kind of the hype man in the Dragon Quest situation. In reality, he's more of, you know, the techie, the engineer, but either way, it all kind of blends together for him. And we see him just bawling, finally. But I couldn't do it. I failed to keep them safe. God damn it. And Arthur comes to, like, comfort him, put his arm around his shoulder. And Arthur tells him, "Leave it to me. I'll find a way to fix this. You, Dragon, even Shinra, wherever he is. With the Excalibur that you built me, I will find a way." And then we cut to Company 8, doing some civilian rescue, as Maki calls, "Please take shelter in this elementary school. Please do your best to relax, and don't lose hope." I think this is Tamaki here. "It'll be a big help." And then all of the civilians say, "Thank goodness, we're actually helping." And a bald man turns to Hinoa, "Thank you so much to everyone at the 8th. And then Maki is just sort of grinning. "Looks like people are starting to feel more relieved." And Hinoa responds, "If this isn't enough to keep despair at bay, then." And we see, and the firestorms are still brewing, as Obi looks up at them, frustrated, or just kind of contemplative that it's not working. And then we cut to the military, it looks like. Reports are flooding in. The flames aren't subsiding. Infernos are still appearing all over the place. Captain Obi had said that keeping citizens in good spirits would decrease the damage, but General Oze, who I don't think we've seen since, like, Nether 2, so welcome back, General Oze. "I don't understand. Why is nothing changing?" And then we cut to Victor and Joker. Joker looks at him, "Licked." And Victor responds, "So you were right after all. In the end, the majority of humans are nothing but fuel for the fire for the one who set this in motion. I can't help but feel like there is any reason in helping a worthless mob who don't even comprehend the story happening around them, and just run around panicking." Okay, Victor. That's a lot to throw at me. So I kind of complained the first time we sort of saw Victor in this mindset, that I was kind of worried it represented Fire Force taking that mindset. And I hope I was wrong about that. but we'll kind of let's let this scene play out. And Joker questions him, "You think mobs are worthless?" And Victor responds, "No matter the era, civilizations are always constructed by a small portion of the people that inhabit them." And then we cut to Sumire, who is very much, this feels like a deliberate sense of Victor echoing Sumire that we kind of saw in, I think it was 55 and 56, but we're seeing it again here explicitly. As Sumire lets out, "You're wasting your time, Fire Force. Who cares about a bunch of brainless insects? As long as powerful people are despairing, the cataclysm will never stop." Okay, so that's a take. And like I would say like the reason I'm kind of nervous that that might actually be what Okubo is saying is the fact that like the common people, the mobs as Victor calls them, are finding hope and it's not doing anything. Um Though the question for Sumire is, who are the powerful people that are despairing? Because if it's the Fire Force, they're starting to find hope in the belief that hope will work. Which is a little bit roundabout and a little bit circular, but it gets the job done. And yet the fires are not subsiding either way. So, I don't know. All of the mobs and the powerful people are things that Okubo is going to have to go into more detail in before I have a firm thought on it. Anyway, we come back to Arthur. After having his whole like bro out comfort moment with Vulcan, as he's finally fighting the dragon, and Vulcan says, "Arthur, you did it! It's the final fight with the Dragon Lord." And Arthur puts down the controller, and Vulcan looks at him. And Vulcan looks at him. "You need a potty break? No. Are you gonna keep playing?" And Arthur just looks down. "My preparation is complete." And Vulcan looks at him kind of confused. And Arthur grabs Excalibur. "From here on out, this is my cross to bear alone. I must conquer the real dragon." Okay, what happened then? Hey Arthur, what's with the sudden, and like Vulcan jumps up, "There's something I must take care of beforehand." And they both put on their coats. And Vulcan looks at him, "Besides eliminating Dragon?" And Arthur tells him, "Hold Excalibur for me, Vulcan." "Why me?" "Host Excalibur towards the heavens, and it will show you Yu's whereabouts." "Huh? I didn't add that feature." And then Arthur just looks at him. As Vulcan just asks, "Are you for real?" He's for real, all right. In order to make good on his promise to a friend, the Night King sets out. To be continued in 262, to swear on the sword. Okay, let's take it. There's some editor's notes on the next page I want to kind of take a look at. So it's specifically about Lick's line, "The worthless mob who don't even comprehend the story happening." Similar to Lick's monologue in chapter 256, instead of saying world, Okubo chose to use the kanji from Monogatari, story, with the furigana for it being sekai, world. Haumea also straight up said story in her speech in chapter 253. I feel like this is all important, probably somehow. That this is all important, probably somehow, is kind of wraps up my thoughts on whatever's been going on with Victor in the past five or so chapters. Because I feel like Okubo is going somewhere with all of this, going back to the live action monologue with Sumire in 255. But I don't quite see what it's all shaping up to be just yet, and I suspect that I will. I suspect that when all is said and done, I will understand where Okubo is going with this, and it'll at the very least be pretty good. If not perfect, it'll at least be, like, decent. But for now, I don't know. So let's talk about the scene I really want to talk about. Vulcan's kind of, like, mini breakdown over not being able to save Yu. And specifically, what it means in terms of the chapter title, The Night King Rises. Because I really love the idea that what The Night King Rises means is not, Arthur beating the Dragon Lord and gaining the strength through video game nonsense to take on Dragon. Um, it's him being there for Vulcan. It is him caring about you and wanting to keep Vulcan's family together. Um, like it's specifically his rising is the vow that he will find a way to fix this, and that somehow Excalibur will point and like even before he fights Dragon, when he says where's the line? There's something I must take care of beforehand. That's almost certainly finding you and saving you if you can be saved. Which is I kind of been under the impression that you is dead, but or is just kind of been fully taken over by Giovanni, and if Giovanni weren't there, he'd just kind of be a mindless infernal. But the way this chapter is set up implies that you can be saved, which we'll see if that turns out to be true. I think it's kind of either or at this point. But let's talk for a minute about the U tracker that's apparently a part of Excalibur. I think the reason that little plot point works, assuming that it actually does point the way to you, is that that's just kind of how Arthur's powers work. Arthur's powers work by belief in the fact that they are what they are, which, honestly, if I had a few days to ponder it, I could probably tie that into a Dola really, really coolly. But I'm not going to sit here and do that. But anyway, Arthur's powers have always worked through belief that they work, and so his belief that Excalibur points the way to you might make it work. I'm not entirely sure if I'm right, but I think I'm onto something there. Anyway, I do really like Arthur's part of this chapter. That in the end, the video game didn't really matter. And it's just sort of, a bonding experience with Vulcan in the end. That kind of gives him the strength to the sense of purpose he needs to beat Dragon. That's why I'm choosing to take it for now until I'm proven otherwise. And then there's this sort of middle part where, Company 8 is doing their best to instill hope and it's not working. And Victor is sounding more and more like Sumire with every passing chapter. But I think the big counterpoint here, the big argument that this is not authorial, the authorial voice here, is Joker's really cool line, "You think mobs are worthless?" Because he's right. To kind of step back into a grander sort of academic perspective, because I was an English minor in college, and this is all I know how to do. Victor and Sumire are kind of presenting like the great man theory of history. The idea that history, that the course of history was shaped by singular great men who forged the path of their eras, right? Like Alexander the Great single-handedly conquered the known world at the time. My exact knowledge of that history might be a little bit off, but there's another way of looking at history. I forget the name for it, but it's like all of the little people. If Alexander the Great is by himself, he's not doing shit. We need to sort of look at the mobs, the armies, the farmers who provide his armies with food, all of the little people. And that seems to be the sense that Joker is sort of getting at here. You think mobs are worthless? Because they're not. Human society is not decided by... Human history is not made of these great men. It is the everyday people. Like Victor is just kind of objectively wrong here. Civilizations are always constructed by a small portion of the people that inhabit them is not true. Civilization is everything from the entire thing. Every single person from the minuscule level. I hope I'm making sense here and not just sort of meandering. My point being that I think that's kind of the question. Those two ways of viewing history are sort of related to the question Okubo is posing here. Joker's "you think mobs are worthless" is the point. They're not worthless. history, contrary to what Victor says, civilizations are created by the mobs, by the, general population. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And I'm really curious to see where that whole subplot goes. But for now, we're going to spend some more time with Arthur and Vulcan as they search for and possibly save you. And then get rid of Giovanni maybe once and for all. He's been once or for all like 4 or 5 times now. I think Giovanni's going to just live forever like a cockroach. But anyway, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, do whatever makes you happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!